Are you feeling anxious about managing food allergies at 30,000 feet? In this episode, we're breaking down what you need to know to make flying with allergies safer and less stressful. From packing smart to handling airline policies like a pro. Whether you're planning a family getaway or another type of trip, this episode will have you confidently soaring. Let's get to it. Hey food allergy mama, if you're here, you've likely experienced the scary and lonely food allergy diagnosis with your child. Unfortunately, food allergy parents aren't taught how to navigate the food allergy lifestyle, and it's easy to feel alone and discouraged sometimes. But I'm here to show you that food allergy life doesn't have to feel restrictive, scary, or isolated. I'm Corinna, and I'm a 17-year food allergy mom and food allergy coach at Friendly Pantry Consulting. I specialize in making food allergy life safer and less worrisome for food allergy families like yours. I'm not perfect, but over 17 years, I've learned a lot the hard way, and I'm sharing the secrets and resources you won't hear anywhere else that will help you feel confident living with food allergies faster and easier than I did. From introducing allergens, travel, navigating school, and educating friends and family, this podcast will give you the essential tips and strategies you need to help your food allergy child and family thrive. Welcome to the show. We were in the airport heading home from an amazing family vacation in Hawaii. Our flight was delayed, but we were still in good spirits because of the wonderful vacation we just experienced. Suddenly, everything changed. The gate attendant made an announcement asking people not to consume nuts on the plane. We realized this was for us, and we were extremely appreciative, though we didn't actually expect them to do this. Since we usually sit with my daughter between us, we don't ask for announcements, but we still appreciated it when it came. Suddenly, it seemed like the sleepy gate area woke up, and it seemed to echo with unhappy voices. Unfortunately, that unhappiness was directed at us and at the gate attendants. The complaints were audible and hurtful. What? Why can't we have a snack just because someone is allergic? That's ridiculous. Why are they even flying? Now, I'm sure that some people understood and really wanted to help, but they were quiet that day, while those who didn't appreciate the restrictions were in earshot, and unfortunately, it hurt our hearts as well. It was a really bad feeling, and I hope we never have to repeat it. I have to say that I'm really thankful for those gate attendants because they stood up for us. They took the brunt of those angry people, and I'm really grateful. I still think of this incident even many years later. That experience left us feeling vulnerable and exposed in a way that we hadn't expected. It's a reminder that traveling with food allergies has unique challenges. Some we can plan for, and others that will catch us by surprise. But instead of letting those moments hold us back, I've learned that we must move on to live life instead of letting negativity change our actions and our hearts. And preparation and confidence can make all the difference. Because if I hadn't felt prepared to fly, and then the incidents at the gate, I think I might have fallen apart. The stress of it all, plus having people being angry, would have wrecked me. So today I'll share some tips that have empowered us to keep traveling and flying with food allergies. Before I start, I have a couple of caveats. Now, the first one is I'm going to say that these tips do not take into account airborne anaphylaxis. Now, airborne anaphylaxis on a plane is controversial because there is anecdotal evidence and stories of it happening, yet the evidence-based data shows that there is a very low chance that airborne anaphylaxis will happen. So over the years, I have thought a lot about this, and I've done a lot of reading and research, and we've talked to our doctor, and we've decided that airborne anaphylaxis is not something that we worry about for our family. Now, I'm thinking of doing a podcast episode on this to talk about what I found in my research, why we don't worry about it on planes. But that said, even though we don't worry about it, there are things you can do to lower the chance of it if it worries you. So I'm wondering, does this topic interest you? If so, please let me know if you want me to do an episode on airborne anaphylaxis on planes. Just send me a DM on Instagram at Friendly Pantry. I would love to hear from you. Either way, I recommend that you start by talking to your board-certified allergist to ask them if airborne anaphylaxis on a plane is an issue for your child, and then act appropriately. But the tips I talk about today don't necessarily take that into account. Now, caveat number 2 is that now, after fairly recently, my daughter can manage traces of her allergens. But the tips I'm going to give you and the way I'm going to talk is basically as if she cannot handle traces, because that's how we traveled for most of our lives. It's only been, a year and a half that we haven't. So, and I know that there's many people who cannot manage cross contact. So I'm going to do my best to talk about it as if that's how we are still traveling. All right, let's get to tip number 1, which is to choose allergy-friendly airlines. Now, I wish I could tell you that there are airlines that are amazing with food allergies, but we've been flying for a long time and we've tried several. Unfortunately, the only thing I can say for sure is that airlines are notoriously inconsistent when it comes to food allergies. Even to the point that a flight crew on the way to a trip will be super helpful and allow you to board early with no problem. And on the way home, a different flight crew will be really difficult and not allow you or try and make it hard for you to board early. That said, I think it's important to do a lot of research and decide if the allergy protocols of that airline are going to work for you. Remember that things change quickly, and so it's important to check with the airline that you're booking with at every trip, even if it was, really great the last time. Tip number 2 is notify the airline at time of booking and again at the gate. So I'm going to be honest here. I have become really complacent with calling airlines and telling them about my daughter's allergies at the time of booking, because the information never quite makes it to the gate. I'm not sure why, but it just doesn't seem to. Although this has kind of come around to bite us when we were coming home from Portugal. The airline said that we didn't let them know about the allergy, so they couldn't let us board early to wipe it down. I'm not sure if there was kind of like a miscommunication, because it seemed like they thought we wanted an allergy meal. I had to explain that we didn't want their allergy meal and just that we wanted enough time to wipe down the seat and the surrounding area. And after a bit of stress and negotiating, it was all okay in the end. They did let us pre-board, but it did cause us that extra stress. So I know now that it is important to contact the airline in advance. Tip number 3 is to bring a safe food supply. And this is why we did not want the airline's allergy meal in the example I just talked about it, because airline food is just not safe to eat with food allergies, even if you request an allergy-free meal. There are no regulations on this, and there's so many incidences where airline food has proven to not be safe. So when you're in the air, it's just not a time to rely on their airline food because it isn't consistent enough. Pack enough allergen-free snacks and meals for your travel day, factor in delays, and bring it all in your carry-on. Remember, because you have it in your carry-on, you are going to have to avoid foods with too much liquids because there's that liquid requirement. You'll also want to avoid fresh fruits or veggies because they are often not going to be acceptable to customs wherever your destination is. Don't forget to bring enough food for the way home as well. Along that line of thinking is airport food. So when we cannot get direct flights and we need to connect in other cities, we try to avoid the airport food if possible because we want to be extra safe. We want to avoid cross contact in as many ways as possible, and safety is the most important when we're traveling. So we usually stick to safe, packed food with the exception of buying, let's say, an unpeeled banana or an orange. And you can find these in the airports if you look. Now, as a side note, if you are having a hard time deciding how much food to bring, what food to bring, I have some cheat sheets in my food allergy travel workshop where they're planning and packing sheets that are going to help you figure out how much food to bring so you don't run out, or that you don't have to pay all these extra fees in luggage for all the extra food you're taking. So check out the Food Allergy Travel Workshop, www.friendlypantry.com/travel, and that will really help you to figure out what to pack and how much. All right, let's move on to tip number 4, which is to carry your medications and your anaphylaxis emergency plan. So we like to bring 2 sets of epinephrine devices for a total of 4. And that way, if you lose a set while you're traveling, you have a spare back in your hotel room. Always carry epinephrine in your carry-on because the checked luggage goes through a large temperature change, which may damage the epinephrine. You also want to have all of that epinephrine on hand and easy accessible while flying. You also want to carry your antihistamines and any other prescribed medications and keep them in their original packaging with the prescriptions to avoid issues at security. And I think it's easy to forget, like you just grab those epinephrine devices, but don't forget your anaphylaxis emergency plan. If you carry a printed copy with your epinephrine, you can keep it easily accessible while flying. And we always put ours with our injectors in a plastic bag so it can be easily grabbed and seen by security. Tip number 4 is to have your child wear a medical alert ID. So this is going to indicate their allergy to alert others in an emergency. So if your child ever got separated from you, you want those adults who find them to be aware of their allergy. So this is, I think, it's something that you might not think about, but I think it's really important. Tip number 6 is to notify TSA agents about your medications. And many times what I do is just put the epinephrine in its own clear plastic bag and then take them out of my carry-on so the agents can see them easily. Because you are allowed to carry epinephrine auto-injectors and liquids like safe food or medications exceeding the liquid amount if it's medically necessary. Even so, I do find it a hassle to exceed the limits of liquid because they are going to do extra checks. And if I can avoid it, I'm going to try and stay within the allowed liquid amounts. But I realize this isn't always possible. So if you are bringing food that is liquid above the required amounts, bring a letter from your allergist explaining allergies and why you need to bring that safe food. And I actually like to have this letter anyway on hand with me, always when we're traveling, just to be safe. And quick tip, if you are bringing anything canned, your carry-on will likely get searched. And I'm not sure how this canned stuff shows up on their screens, but we had a tuna meal that came in a can in one of our trips to Europe. And as you can imagine, we had lots of flights and transfers, and they searched us every single time. We went through security, and we were told it was because of the can. It's not that it wasn't allowed because they didn't confiscate it, but it shows up on their screen and it flags it for a search. And that brings me to another point. That was security that flagged it for a search, but you still have to go through customs as well. So canned meat or fish may not be okay to bring into another country depending on where you're going. So you need to do your research there. And even after doing your research, always declare any food whenever asked at any borders, because if you don't declare it and they find it, you can be charged hefty fines. If you do declare it, they may still take it away from you, but we haven't had this happen yet. I think the letter from the allergist that I talked about earlier is helpful for this as well. But the bottom line is that it's really important to keep customs requirements in mind when you're packing food for your child and your trip. Tip number 7 is to board early and clean your area. So when you board the plane, wipe down your seat, your tray table, your armrests, and anything else you might touch with disinfectant wipes. Don't forget the seatbelt buckle and the buttons above your head. Keep lots of wipes on hand so you can wipe before eating and after moving around the cabin as well. And tip number 8 is to remember that flying with food allergies is totally doable. I know the stories I've told you in this episode may make it seem like flying with food allergies is scary or maybe even just overwhelming. But here's the truth. It's doable with the right preparation and mindset. I share the tough parts of our past journeys not to scare you, but to prepare you. I've been there, I've learned the hard way, so you don't have to. And that's why I created my food allergy travel workshop, to give you the tools, strategies, and the confidence to make travel not just manageable, but enjoyable for your whole family. Let me help you skip the learning curve so you can confidently travel with food allergies. To learn more, just go to www.friendlypantry.com/travel. So what do you think? What has been your experience flying with food allergies? Do you feel confident or worried? Let me know. I love hearing from you. And if this episode helped you, please leave a 5-star review. This helps other families find this podcast and also lets me know your thoughts. Thanks for listening, and bye for now. Before you go, Mama, if you love this episode and want deeper support, head over to friendlypantry.com to see how we can partner together to keep your food allergy child safer and worry less. There's no need for wasting time searching all over Instagram, TikTok, and the web to get the practical knowledge you need for your family. While you're there, grab your free Food Allergy Kids Empowerment Guide or the newly diagnosed checklist today. Topics are not medical advice and are the opinions, views, and property of Friendly Pantry Consulting Incorporated. All rights reserved. Always contact your board-certified allergist, immunologist for health advice.